You let me know when it started. Awesome. All right. Welcome everyone to our Cycle 5 StudEx meeting. So as usual, we will go ahead and have officer reports, but besides having only voting member officer reports, we're just going to have the entire StudEx, since this is the new way for senators to be able to hold us accountable without us taking almost a full hour of full Senate in this part. So everyone's just gonna say like a couple of points of what they're working on, like you would do in your normal officer report, and this will be recorded, and senators will be able to look at it and ask any questions previously to the full Senate. And yeah, this just speeds up the whole process. And so with that being said, we can go ahead and start with our first officer report, which is by our student body president, Naya.
Hey y'all, I'm just not hopping on video today, but yeah, I just don't have a whole lot in mine might be like intertwined with some other folks, but just a couple things to update y'all on. One of the things like I've been working on this week and this past week that I've been really excited about is talking to some of the other exec folks in the office about projects and programs Senate will be doing in the next couple of months. One of those being planning a town hall for students to come and be heard about some of these sexual assault incidents on campus, and just talking about sexual assault on campus in general. We have been discussing planning a warm clothes drive with our policy and development director, Ariana. Um, Sorry, I'm in like a lobby, so you guys can hear the elevator. But and then I've also just been in conversations with Daphne about multiple DEI initiatives that we're wanting to carry out in Senate. So really excited about working on those. We met with KBOR this past week, which was really awesome. We met them with some other like faculty and staff people, which I thought was really great. We got to get some things clarified with them. We spoke about student insurance student insurance rates. One of the things that I ultimately wanted to bring to them was affordability at KU and accessibility specifically to housing, and especially to our queer and trans community and our students of color community. Um, and then we got to relay that meeting and some of those talking points to the chancellor and provost when we met with them on Friday, which I thought was really good. We also got to meet the new interim director, Demetrius, who is the interim director of Title IX. So I really look forward to setting up like additional meetings with him to just kind of getting some better clarification on student rights on campus. Um, and then, yeah, I think that's a good consensus of the past couple weeks since we last met. So, anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much, Naya. If you have a question, you can go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask it. Um, and for people watching this in the future, if you have any questions, you can just email them to either the Chief of Staff or Internal Affairs.
And then I guess I will too. I forgot to add this, but Ethan and I got to attend some of the 51 Years Out programming this week and got to meet with some KU alum from the Gay Liberation Front movement that happened on campus, which was really awesome. So I was grateful we got to attend those and just also meet some old Senate alumni too. So.
Awesome. Any questions in the end or? All right. Well, then it seems that we can go ahead and go to our next officer report, which is by Ethan, our student body vice president. And you can go ahead, Ethan. Do folks have any questions for Ethan?
I actually have one quick question in regards to the town hall stuff that you all were talking about. I just want to make sure, or I guess I'm asking to clarify, there are going to be like boundaries, like a set of expectations and a set of like warnings or ways to make that accessible and to make sure that people aren't just like trauma dumping or participating in trauma porn in this event, correct? No, that makes sense. That was my clarification to make sure that those things were being discussed. But thank you. That's good.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. I think you answered it good. And to like, this is something where like, it's not just going to be like a handful of students like planning this whole thing. Like, we're wanting to make sure that, we are having like committee participation, and folks in student senate like who are willing to help with this, and then of course, yeah, like setting expectations of the space, making sure like it is a safe space, and that it's a town hall that's going to be accomplishing results from that. So yeah, it in the like those things are, we're still kind of like in the early stages of like planning. So as we get together with all the necessary like planning folks, like we'll be mapping out how like that's gonna look. So and then obviously Asia, like you'll be in those conversations, just obviously like because of your position. So yeah, so I think that that'll be something to bring up in that as well. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Do folks have any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move to our next officer report, which is by our graduate student vice president, Holly.
Hi, everyone. As to not kind of repeat the same things, I'll go pretty quick. As Ethan mentioned, both of us got reached out to by Amanda Mollett, and I sent an email to all graduate students at the university, including speaking to those specifically in the higher ed administration program that I actually have class with some of those students. And I managed to get every graduate seat filled on committees for University Senate, and also took some of the seats that didn't specify undergrad or grad and put grad students in that higher ed program on it, as they're very reliable. And it also, the committees that they've been put on relates to their degree. So I know that they'll be very sure to go to those meetings and actively participate. So that's great. As Naya mentioned, we met with the Board of Regents and I brought up the issue of student health insurance. It's quite near and dear to my heart, as obviously I'm an international student and I'm required to have that insurance, as well as being a graduate incentivized student. Is something that really affects graduate students, specifically those that have dependents. And I am on the cable insurance committee and we meet this coming week. And unfortunately, it does look like there's going to be another hefty increase to insurance for the next year. So I made sure to bring up how it's becoming very unaffordable and we need to look at other ways to make sure students are insured whilst not having to create such a financial burden on them. The Graduate Student Advisory Board met for our monthly meeting, and we also met for our separate meeting with the Provost and Vice Provost for Graduate Studies. Both went pretty well, just carving out some issues some students are facing on campus. I have a specific graduate student that I have been supporting through a pretty rough time, and I'm getting together with their chair of their department to kind of help them navigate some issues that they are facing, or they have been facing since they joined their program. Graduate students are also going to be invited to meet with the Vice Provost and the Advisory Board at a drop-in coffee session on November 3rd. So looking forward to that one. And then lastly, just making sure that we start to carve out a space and a place to advocate for the different centres on campus. By centres, I mean the Centre for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, the Centre for East Asian Studies, the Kansas African Studies Centre, and the Centre for Eastern and Eurasian Studies. I think it's Centre for Russian and Eastern European Studies, CREAS. They've been financially hit by the reorganization within the college, and graduate students that are part of the Latin American Graduate Student Organization, LAGO, and some that work for the Center for Latin American Caribbean Studies have raised issues late last week about how they were really worried about not having space on campus for themselves, and how they the identities that they hold, and that the college isn't being very supportive of making sure that the centres stay afloat, and they're really integral to ethnic studies on our campus. And so we met, Naya was there and I was there, some other exec wanted to go but were unable. And I think Umberto and Naya together will be spearheading a resolution to go through Senate this week, as well as signing on to the letter that the LAGO students write to the university. I unfortunately can't be there because I have class, but I'm definitely there to sign on and help support in any way. And if any of you all would like to be involved in those meetings, I'll definitely reach out to Umberto, as I think he'll be organising them and probably touch on it in his report too. So that's everything I have so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Does anyone have a question for our grad VP? All right. Seeing none, then we can go ahead and move to my officer report. So basically, a lot of things are being worked on from the SSRR rewrite, which Ethan mentioned, to the hiring process for the new associate treasurer. We're gonna be having interviews this next week on Wednesday and Thursday. So the idea is that by the end of this week, we will have someone hired. We have 7 applicants, I believe, so it's a pretty good turnout. So I'm excited to go into this process of interviewing folks for the position. Then we are also, so I had already done a group of random senators to be in the committee to elect people to our judicial court and our court of appeals. Unfortunately, a lot of the senators that had been randomly chosen are part of the group of senators that resigned, and that we voted upon last StudEx. So I had to create a new one, and so we're gonna start looking into applications, because we also have applications for those positions. Then I met with the first-year senators last week to introduce them to Senate, walk them through the legislative process, walk them through Robert's rules, basically just told them everything, how it works and where they can focus their energy, etc. Then I had something else. So we are, oh God, I don't know why it literally came back to me and it slipped. Well, I think that's all I have for right now. But if something comes back to mind, I will go ahead and just mention it in a bit. But yeah, any questions for me? Sounds good. With that, the next officer report would be Hamad's, but Hamad uploads his officer report to YouTube. So we will just include the link there wherever we upload this officer report, so that folks can see his too. The next one would be our campus community outreach directors, Miriam and Radia, or I don't know if both are here, but
Yeah, we're both here. So I'm going to start by talking about our general big picture CCO initiatives. So Mariam, Sadie, and I have been working on planning and organizing our 31st annual Launch KU and General CCO fundraiser. And we're working through endowment and also fundraising through some of our social medias. So we're planning on having this fundraiser run for a little over a month. Another initiative we've been working on is we've had our first in-person advisory board meeting for the first time in 20 months. And this was a really good opportunity where we discussed strategic planning and enhanced alumni engagement with community partners, faculty, KU departments, and other student reps of like the CCO. So we got a chance to debut our newest program, Hawk's Mind, to the advisory board. And then finally, we've been working with the Lawrence Douglas County Health Department to organize another COVID-19 testing drive because of the really high student engagement we had that first time around. I think we tested over 400 students, and we had a chance to work with KU Emergency Services and the Health Department. So we're looking forward to continuing that on the ground work. And then Mariam's going to touch on some of our internal development that we've been working on.
So yeah, just to shout out a few events that we have coming up. Our Helping Unite Generations, or HUG program, next week on Friday from 10 to 12 has a pumpkin carving opportunity. Basically, we are going to have 15 volunteers paired up with senior citizens of Windsor of Lawrence, just kind of hanging out with them, carving pumpkins, having a good time. So we're really excited about that. Another super cool opportunity that's coming up soon, starting on November 8th, we pushed it a little bit up until November 19th. It's a collaboration between our COS, Concerned Active Aware Students program, and Jubilee Cafe. And it's basically going to be a canned food drive. Although I believe that they're also going to be accepting any sort of warm items as well. But basically, they're going to be bins around campus, at the unions, of course, on Wesco, and then in the sorority houses, as in a few sorority houses as well, where students can drop off any canned food items that they have. Our program is currently working on some incentives for students as well. And so, yeah, if you guys have any warm items or canned food that you'd like to, donate, there'll be bins around campus in the beginning of November. So feel free to drop it off. Some of the food will go to Campus Cupboard. Some of it will go to Lawrence Region, Kansas. The rest of it will probably go to the First Methodist Church, which is where Jubilee Cafe is based in. If you know of other local initiatives that could use these items, then feel free to let me or Radia know, and we'll pass that on to our program coordinators. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
thank you very much, Miriam and Radia. Do folks have any questions? All right. And before we move to next officer report, I did remember the couple of points that slipped my head. The first one was that we had a meeting with the libraries because they're going to go through renovations, and we had a couple senators show up. It was actually a pretty good turnout of students, which is exactly what they wanted because no students had been participating at all in this process. And so we were able to give great feedback on how we imagine like a good library to be, how we hope renovations could look like. And I know we're going to stay in contact to like plan for future dates. Then we also had a meeting with one of the chairs of DEI, Daphne and I, on Friday to see how we can get engagement up, and we are going to be meeting with other committees individually to see how we can support each other. And the final point is that we also did learn this week how to operate the new website, the one that we're transitioning everything to. So I know we will definitely be working on that new website this next week, and hopefully it'll be ready to go soon. Daphne, you can go ahead now.
Okay, cool. Mine's pretty short and to the point because everything has pretty much already been talked about by someone else. But first, like Humberto said, we met with Emma, the chair of DEI, on Friday. And so moving forward, they're going to be tabling, I believe, in the union, maybe on Wesco, but hoping to get more participation at the DEI committee. As for me specifically, still working on Title IX things. assisting with the town hall as best as I can, while also looking into staff requirements for diversity training, because our university does not offer that, and students have brought to my attention that that is really problematic for them in the way that they interact with professors and just faculty and staff at the university. So I've been looking into that to see what I can do about that. Naya and I have been talking about the DEI retreat, and we have a more concrete idea of where that's going to go. So I am going to be reaching out to organizations on campus that we want to ask if they would be willing to participate in the retreat, and we'll hopefully have more specific details about that moving forward. But yeah, those are pretty much my big things for the week.
Thank you, Daphne. Do folks have any questions? I did want to ask, did you mention, I think you mentioned to me that this retreat might be made like in conjunction with Haskell. Is that still the plan?
Not so much Haskell anymore. I think that we're going to ask FINSA to partner with us, as well as other student orgs. Naya has been talking to Haskell about doing something with our exec board, but it won't be for the retreat. But yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other questions?
So,
oh yeah,
I just was gonna like touch on that. Obviously, like it's gonna like the retreat's gonna like obviously our DEI retreat is gonna be open to like our students and like other students like at Haskell or just like in the community. But just like and having conversations like with like their SBP and just like some of the things that have like occurred recently on campus, like I think that for us, like we just need to kind of focus on like what we can do to support them and foster that relationship. Because obviously, like considering some of the things that have happened at KU, both in the past and recently, there is some like apprehension on working with KU, which is like 100% understandable, and I don't blame them. So yeah, so like, but as far as like the Haskell KU retreat, that is something that I'm in talks with them about, like specifically for the student government and not like a university-wide thing, if that makes sense. Like fostering the relationship between our student governments.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, no, thank you. That makes sense. Any final questions or points before we move on to our next office report? All right. So our next officer would be our Director of Policy and Development, Ariana.
Hi, everyone. So the first thing that I have is something that Naya already mentioned, which was like working on a warm clothes / like coat like donation drive. So we're hoping to get like donations from or like have donation bins in residence halls, using the unions, possibly maybe being able to get Greek Life to participate, and hopefully we can start conversations to try and make this a permanent fixture like the SGD closet or the professional clothes closet from the University Career Center. So that's something that's in the mix right now. Student Senate study nights. We are pivoting towards a more like general, like open to all type of event rather than specific organizations. And again, that would just be an event where we would just be like Student Senate's hosting a study night, so just an area or just space for people to study, and our exec staff or other members of Student Senate would be there so people could get to know us. The Student Senate Survey Board, where I'm going to try and convene that soon. I know we're still waiting on some certain board appointments to complete that, but I'm really excited to get that done because one of the super fun things we're tasked with is, doing research and, making sure our, fee people are using their fee money in good ways and trying to assess that. But that is all I have for right now. So if there are any questions, shoot.
Do we have any questions for Ariana? All right. Sounds like we can move on to our next officer report, which is our Director of Communications, Asia.
Hi, everyone. So blessed and thankful that I've had Humberto go over basically everything that I've been working on. So thankful for that. But basically, I am working on the website. There's been a lot of discrepancy about whether or not it has been updated, and that's primarily because people are using the old website as a frame of reference for what is done or completed, when the new website is not something that is like pushed out to the public yet for anyone to see or monitor. All of that being said, I did get to meet with IT to figure out some of the technical complications that were out of our control, and be able to get those things under wraps in order to move forward with the publication process of our Student Senate website. I've already discussed or talked about some of the edits that I've made to the archaic nature of the language that the old Senate site has used, in addition to making it more accessible and just more fun for students to look at, which is not something I think anyone can say about the old website. As far as our social media things are concerned, I think that I am going to try to figure out a way, whether that be through Teams or through my own personal social media or whatever, but to have a sort of Dropbox of sorts, not like literally the program, but where people can place events or, holidays or days that they think are worthy of being posted. I find it kind of arbitrary that the Student Senate exec are in control about like what holidays or things people are posting about or whatever, because everyone has different priorities and understandings about what days are worthy of celebration or recognition, which is why most of our social media sites have taken the position to retweet and repost other people's celebrations of XYZ particular day, just because we can't always 100% speak for those holidays and their significance. That being said, I will also try to publish, whether that be on Teams or somewhere where people can access through email, a calendar or a schedule that I intend on sticking to in terms of what will or will not be posted. Before the end of this week, we should have a update with get to know me Senate officer, or like get to know your Senate officers posts on our Instagram and Facebooks, where you can see what each officer is working on. So basically just a TLDR of these officer reports this evening. I hope everyone is staying happy and healthy. And if anyone has questions for me, you can obviously ask them now or email me through my Senate email, or you can contact me through any of the other Senate officers because they love to do that.
Thank you. Any questions for our comms director? All right. We can go ahead and move on to our next officer report, which is Max, our Director of Internal Affairs.
Hi, everyone. My big thing as per SSRR this week is the internal demographics survey, which is basically just a questionnaire for senators where we try to kind of figure out different characteristics of our student Senate body and work on areas where maybe we're missing representation. So I had a meeting with Daphne and Ari about that. We kind of had the areas of questions we wanted to do. I completed the questions. I have it written out. I still need to consult with them to make sure that that's all right, which I'm sure we'll do before full Senate. How it works is I'll make an announcement on full Senate this week, and then it'll be emailed to the listserv, and hopefully everyone will fill it out, and then we'll present the data at the next full Senate meeting. So that's mainly what I've been working on. I had a Student Senate Outreach Board meeting a few weeks ago, and we discussed potential options to kind of help with quorum. I wrote the bills based off of what we talked about in those meetings. I haven't really sent it out to anyone. I sent it to all the people that were in that meeting and were looking it over. Basically, it's just kind of clarifying what the probation period is. So when someone gets put on probation, they won't count towards the quorum number, but they're not necessarily removed yet. So it doesn't take like 5 weeks to remove someone, or to not to remove someone, to make it so that they don't count for quorum. And then the other one is just a thing about graduate students counting towards the quorum number. Mentorship program is open, not a lot of applicants. Hopefully, as the word gets out about that more, we'll have more applicants. That's all I have.
I have a question, Max, or maybe like a point of information.
Yeah, is it about the graduate thing?
Yeah, of course. What else would it be about?
So, what we're doing right now is there's actually, so the section for excused absences in SSRR mentions like graduate student work, graduate student like teaching, all of those stuffs are verifiable. Like you will be excused if you do one of those things. So we thought it didn't really make sense that if there's those kinds of things written into SSRR that they aren't beholden to the same standards of attendance, especially when they're counting towards the quorum number. And usually the graduate students are the ones that are not coming based off of what we've seen with attendance so far. So, I mean, obviously, if they have a bunch of work to do, they have a dissertation, they have a defense, anything like that, it'll be excused. But we don't want them all not coming or not attending if it's going to hurt quorum.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. I was just going to raise that. I spoke to Ethan about this. Ethan raised this to me, which was great. And I think maybe we need to have a meeting with the graduate senators together and not have this be something that like we decide for them, but like we come to an agreement. So we could maybe set up a meeting for that in the coming weeks to make sure that we don't have people feel like their vote doesn't matter, because I think that's going to be something that is going to upset. But I also see the logic that you all are bringing, that quorum does get hurt by it, but I think we need to find like a middle ground, and I'm not sure what that looks like, but I definitely think we should have some conversations about that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'd be completely open to meeting with them. I'd say the bill is not really targeted at them at all. It's more just, I mean, we understand the graduate senators are busy, and that's why they're missing all these meetings. Obviously, they're much more busy than I am. So maybe just having something written into like clarifying the purpose and what the bill will look like would be good with them, is basically what I'm getting at. So I completely agree.
Perfect. Thank you, Max.
Any other questions for Max? All right, then with that, we can move to our next officer report. Oh, yeah.
So my question is sort of like to the probation period, because I guess I sort of like don't understand like taking them out of the quorum, because wouldn't that essentially mean that like whatever constituency they represent is also not going to be represented in the quorum?
I don't necessarily think that's true, but I don't know if I really, I don't know, like the bill hasn't even been submitted yet. I don't know if I really want to debate it here. I can talk to you about it another time, or like we can talk about this in full Senate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Ethan. If it's a bill that's gonna be going like through without any graduate student input, like I completely disagree with that. And I didn't even know there was a bill going through. So I feel like before we even try and pass the bill, like there should be input by me, grad senators.
It's to clarify, I haven't submitted these bills. I was just working on them. I just finished them like an hour before this meeting. I have not.
I'm sorry.
We're not even close to that point.
Sure, babe. I wasn't like trying to have no beef with anyone. I was just saying, like, before we get to that point, we should kind of see what how the senators are feeling, is all I was trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.
Appreciate you. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it seem like you were being dodgy. I know you're not. My bad.
You're all good. I didn't get that at all from you, Holly.
All right. Thank you very much, Max. I think we can go ahead and move to our Director of Government Relations, Birdie.
Okay, hey y'all. I have been working on getting holidays and higher ed scheduled. So that's pretty much all but done, and invitations for that will be going out in the next few weeks. It'll be on November 2nd. December 2nd. And then I've also been looking ahead to Big 12 on the Hill, and starting to get some of that stuff scheduled and figuring out who we'll be meeting with and what we're going to be advocating for in DC. So if you know of anyone who is specifically wanting something to be advocated for, send them my way. And then just lastly, following that KBOR meeting on Thursday, it's very clear KBOR has no understanding of what students actually want or need. So we are planning on having a town hall with KBOR so that students, especially like in student orgs that receive funding from us, can sort of go and advocate for themselves and make KBOR just a little bit more aware of student life and what it's actually like. But yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Birdie? All right, seeing none, we can go ahead and move on to our Chair of University Affairs Officer Report, which is Faith.
Hi, everyone. Just kind of touching on the lack of involvement or just the consistency. That's really what I've been working on, is trying to engage my committee, especially in the last few meetings that we've had. I wanted to ensure that we were really being mindful of everyone's time, especially as it's kind of difficult to have quorum. So unfortunately, we've had to rush through a lot of the agenda, and we've not done a whole lot of elections. I know next cycle, my vice chair will be chairing for me, as I'm going to be out of town. So I'm going to prep her for that. But if exec could sit in on UA and help, that would be fantastic. And just, I was also proxy for Mary for the KBOR meeting, and Birdie summarized it perfectly into a T. They really don't know what's going on, so I'm excited to start working on that town hall, but that is pretty much my update. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Faith? All right, seeing none. Emma told me that they wouldn't be here, so we can go ahead and move to the officer report by the Chair of Finance, Sadie. I do remember seeing Sadie on the call. Is she still on the call by any chance, or?
She put her report in the chat. Finance is going well, living and loving life. The review elections are coming up next cycle. I will send out an info sheet to chairs before then.
Perfect. Thank you, Ethan. Is Wesley on the call?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, our next officer report will be the Chair of Rights, Wesley.
So again, we've been trying to focus on increasing engagement, but now we have the tools to do so. We know how to do the food reservations. In order to try to draw in more freshmen, we know how to be able to pay for flyers, and the secretary set up tabling times for us. So that way we'll have a more active presence on campus starting this next week. And with it, we're just hoping to be able to draw more people. And then also in a conversation with Umberto and Faith and a couple other Senate officers, a good idea that was sort of spitballed last Wednesday was having like a DEI, university affairs, and rights, just sort of like centralized social event before, since we start 30 minutes after finance, in order to draw more students in. So basically an event with like food, other things that could possibly draw in students, and just for all of the committees that start later. So, and I would need to be following up with the other chairs in order to see how feasible that would be.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Wesley. Are there any questions for our rights chair? All right, awesome. Thank you very much. With that, we are done with our officer reports. Hopefully this is like compact enough for folks to look in YouTube or wherever this is uploaded so that you can ask questions before full Senate. Our next item in the agenda would be to review and vote on full Senate agenda. You can all access it too through our StudEx files, and there's a full Senate agendas folder. All right, so our agenda is relatively short. We will hopefully be also discussing the resolution for the cut of Latin America and Caribbean studies, but this is like the official agenda, like with the business that we have to look over. The bills 2022-024 used to be in the consent agenda because it's just $100, but because of the nature of it being like a Orthodox Christian fellowship, as you all know, we are not allowed to fund religious events, but that doesn't mean we can't fund like a religious organization, because if the event is non-religious, then that doesn't really affect our rules. But of course, it's still relatively controversial. Like more discussion needs to be had, and so the finance committee did request that it was removed from the consent agenda and passed to the regular agenda. But with that would be the only change. Everything else is normal. We have 3 funding bills and 1 amendment. Do we have any questions about the agenda or any comments?
To that end, Umberto, should we just go ahead and like take the consent agenda off there, since there's going to be nothing put in a consent agenda?
I mean, I guess I just want, I do want to let it know that there was, and we're just moving it to the regular agenda. I think it also helps to for senators to see that you are able to move items from the consent agenda, just to make it visible. I don't know if we necessarily have to take it off.
Okay. All right. I just thought it might.
I think it looks.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Holly.
I'm so sorry. You go first, Ethan. My bad.
I was just gonna say I was worried it might be a little confusing for folks, seeing it both there and down there, but I can also see where it could be a learning opportunity for folks. So I would agree with you there, Umberto. And yeah, now you can go, Holly.
Oh, I was just gonna say I think it looks messy. I think we could explain that when we go into the consent agenda, if we that we're not having a consent agenda, and we can explain why without having a document that looks messy. To be in my personal opinion, I think it's confusing in that way because it looks messy.
I mean, so if it just said move to the regular agenda for further discussion, without the bill part, without the numbering, would that be better? Or I just don't.
Yeah, I think we can just explain. You can explain what you just explained to us to the full Senate, or Ethan can, and it would make way more sense than having what it can't, having it duplicated or whatever.
I mean, it's not duplicated though. It just says consent agenda, move to the regular agenda for further discussion.
I think
yeah,
it's
that's
good.
what I mean. It's
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I think it's good to have that for context, because especially Senate observers won't really know, just by looking at it, that it was moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. And it's just good signposting for people who just sort of look at the agenda before they decide what to do. So it's a notice oh, this is a thing, it's just $100, but it's a controversial $100. So that's at least what it says to me. And if I were still just a Senate observer, that would clue me in to go, maybe this one will be an interesting one.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, and maybe I wasn't very clear, if we keep it on there, I still think the explanation as to why is important to be said in the full Senate.
Yeah, no, it will be said.
Perfect.
Awesome. Any other comments or concerns, questions?
Motion to pass the agenda.
That would be in order. Do I see a second?
Seconded.
Perfect. It's been properly moved and seconded. All of those in favor of approving this, if you are a voting member, please send aye to the chat.
I'm saying my I verbally because I'm driving.
Okay, perfect. Okay, with that, it appears that this motion passed, so we have an agenda set. Thank you all. With that, we can move to our final item of the agenda, which is looking over the cycles for next semester. So this is the tentative schedule for the spring. We just need to get it approved now so that Hamad can start scheduling with the fee committees and like the fee person that looks over each student fee, and get all the fee review subcommittee stuff figured out, just because that's like our most important role and the most complex. We want to make sure there's enough preparation, so that's why we should approve it right now. So this also takes into consideration spring break, so it should be all correct. Are there any questions about this calendar or comments? And if not, I'll be looking for a motion.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I haven't looked this far ahead into the academic calendar, so like feel free to like correct me if I'm wrong, but so for the first cycle 8 being January 19th and January 26th, is that when students do come back from winter break to be able to attend those committees, or would that be too early?
Oh no, that is this whole calendar was made based on the academic calendar.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I just know that last year it was like we came back pretty much at February. So
yeah.
I wanted to clarify that and make sure that students would be able to sort of jump right back into it easily. But yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think the first day of classes is actually January 17th, which is the day they have like the deadlines for submitting legislation. Do I see a motion from anyone to get this passed?
Motion to.
Second.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All of those in favor of approving this bill, this site agenda, my bad, please say aye in the chat.
Verbal I once again because I'm driving.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. With that, this calendar passes. And that is the end of our StudEx meeting. We were able to conclude in an hour, which is pretty good considering we went through all the officer reports. Do folks have any questions or any announcements to make before we adjourn?
I have a question for StudEx. With the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies and the resolution, do we think it would be meaningful to go into committee of the whole on Wednesday? And specifically, I'm asking this because obviously Senate has been running really long and we've lost quorum. Or do we think that the resolution should go through committees next week and then be voted on the week after? I kind of wanted some feedback on what everybody is thinking in regards to that.
If I could add something, I think that the cycle. Oh, sorry, Naya. Do you want to go first or should I? You actually raised your hand, so.
You can go first.
Okay, perfect. I was just going to bring up, this is a pretty light cycle. So for something to be introduced in committee of the whole this cycle, where we only have 4 pieces of legislation to discuss, might be better than, next cycle, since we can't predict how much legislation that is going to have until the end of this week. And to that end, I think that either way it goes, I think it'll be helpful to have the dialogue. But if we want to do it in committee of the whole this week, I would just say that we should introduce it into committee of the whole, and then we should pretty much move out immediately to sort of debate and discuss it so that we can control and sort of moderate the debate a lot easier, because when it's in committee of the whole, there's no control to the discussion that gets to be had. But if we do exit after introducing the bill, then we would be able to mediate the discussion and make it to where it could be a timely discussion.
That's really a great, that sounds great to me. I just wanted feedback.
Thank you, Holly, and thanks, Ethan. Any other announcements or questions?
Well, I just was gonna say too, like in the conversation, like with them that we had this past week, what they were saying is that like the centers are, it's not like the centers are not gonna be closing like tomorrow or next week, or what they basically were explaining is that 4 of the 5 centers are applying for Title VI funding, or the Title VI grant. And if they're not able to get those grants, that is when kind of the budget cut / like defunding from KU is going to become like pertinent. So I think just to that sense, like, again, we're supposed to be meeting with them on Monday to discuss like the statement and the resolution. So ultimately, I think deciding whether to do committee of the whole on Wednesday or to do it through committees and then do it, in the next couple of weeks in full Senate is going to be pertinent on that conversation, because ultimately, like, they're going to be able to tell us like what they need from us and whether our actions need to be, kind of like immediately or, more kind of like paced out. So I think like we would have a better answer to that question after we talk to them on Monday or tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naya.
Yeah, that makes sense, Naya. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that.
I guess if I could also add something, especially as it comes to like resolutions we've seen come through even just like this year in terms of legislation. I'd also add that if folks did want to do resolution committee of the whole, they'd be preparing for like the first 3 days of this week all the way up to Senate to then present that resolution there. But if they did want to do it through this committees and then the full Senate of next cycle, then they would have the ability there to essentially research it for the entirety of this week before submitting it to Umberto at 5 o'clock on Friday. So if that's something that can maybe also be like relayed to them, that like it would be better in terms of time and like researching the legislation if they wanted to submit it by this Friday. But also like, yeah, at least that's just like what the timeliness seems like to me to be, that it can be something that we like just research more before we discuss it.
Perfect. Any announcements? All right, then I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I see a second?
Seconded.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All of those in favor of adjourning, please react, send a reaction or something. All opposed? Abstentions? This motion passes. We are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you all for being here.